Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. So it is week 6 of the Three Rivers challenge, and I have remade a lot of my dishes that I did in previous weeks. So of course I didn't film those. These are the ones that I did fresh this week. And by the time you see this, if you're seeing it on Sunday when I post it, it is Super Bowl Sunday. So if you watch football, then go for your team. So for tonight's dinner, I am going to make my version of dirty rice. Here I have my rice soaking. I'm put a side of carrots with it, vegetable broth, some home canned hamburger. I have out of the freezer some onions and some peppers. There's some bell peppers in there. And then my seasonings that I use. I have some granulated lemon juice, and you could just use regular lemon juice. So let's get into it. And then I found this bag of hot peppers, and I thought I would just put a couple of those, probably like one, because these are really hot. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my frozen veggies sauteed, and I'm just going to do that in a little bit of butter. And in goes my frozen onions and peppers. And I just want to get those warmed through so I can just start building in my flavors. And then I'm just going to add my seasonings to this. I'm using a ranch packet. If you want to use whatever kind of seasonings you have, then go right ahead. But I thought this would be a nice complement to the dirty rice. And I am going to reserve some of this packet of ranch seasoning to actually flavor my meat with. So once I've got all my seasonings in and mixed through, I'm just going to add my pre-soaked rice. I pre-soak my rice because I find it cooks a lot faster if I pre-soak it. So that's why I do that, but if you don't want to do that, then you don't have to. And I put a bit of olive oil in there just to help things not to stick, because I'm going to let it go for a little bit before I put in my broth. And this is the broth as well as the water off of my carrots. So I'm going to bring this to a boil and then turn it down to simmer and let it cook with the top on. So while my rice is cooking, I'm going to prepare the hamburger. I am using home canned, and I'm going to use about half of this. And I want all that fat and everything that's around the top, because that's going to add flavor to the dish. I used a little more than half. I wanted to use half, but I used a little bit more, and I'll use the rest of that for another meal. So I'm just going to get this warmed through, and we're going to add the rest of that ranch packet, as well as a little bit of lemon in this as well, just to marry the two halves of this particular dish so it all comes together in the end. So just my lemon packet, and then the rest of that ranch dressing. And I also added a little bit of salt and pepper as well, and of course my no salt seasoning, but you know I always use that garlic powder and onion powder. And that's what I added into the rice as well as to the meat portion of this dirty rice dish. And I also reserved a little bit of the broth to go in with the meat, so all the flavors blend together. So I'm adding a bit of Worcestershire sauce, and then I'm just going to let it cook down. So now that my rice is ready, I cooked it on simmer for about 15 minutes, and there's no water left at the bottom. It's not sticking, which is great because I tend to stick a lot of stuff. But this one turned out pretty good. That olive oil really helps. And then I'm just adding in my hamburger, and we're going to mix this right through. And we are going to serve this with a side of carrots, and that's going to be our dinner tonight. So here it is, dirty rice with a side of carrots, and I'm just going to get these last two plates on the table, and this is going to be our dinner for tonight. So in keeping with trying to use things up out of the fridge and freezer, I have some of this leftover hamburger that I'm going to use tonight. I have some diced tomatoes, some mushrooms, some butter out of my fridge, and my potatoes and some potato soup mix that I'm going to use. And I am going to make shepherd's pie. And of course, I can't forget the peas and carrots. This thing I'm going to get my potatoes on. It has just a little bit of water in the bottom, and I'm just going to warm them through because they're already home canned, so they're already cooked. And while that's warming, I'm going to get the bottom or the filling or the meat portion made. So into my frying pan goes a little bit of butter. So I'm going to saute my peppers and my onion. I found a little bit of onion in the freezer as well. So I'm going to saute those together and get them going. And then I'm going to add my spices. Now I'm going to go a little heavier on the spices than I would normally because I don't have any more onion in the freezer. So I'm going to boost the flavor with my dried herbs and spices. So in goes my regular ones that you see me use all the time, and a couple of extra ones because again I don't have any onions. I did find some fresh garlic, so I'm going to put a little bit of fresh garlic in as well, and that's all just to help boost the flavor of the meat. So I have a friend, he's from Trinidad, and he told me when I was making curry that you fry the spices first. So that's why I always fry my spices first. He said it releases the oils and makes them more fragrant. So that's why I do it this way. So in goes my mushrooms that I did drain the water off and reserve because I am going to add it back in later. And this will help to stretch the meat. So in goes a little bit of flour. I just want to thicken this up some when I do add in my liquid back in. And that will help thicken everything up. So I'll let that cook for a few minutes, and then of course in goes the liquid that I took off the mushrooms, and I will add my liquid from my peas and carrots back in here as well, just to give it a little bit more liquid. So now I'm going to add in my hamburger. This was left over from the other night's dinner, and it's about a third of the jar. I wanted to do half, but I used a little bit more than half in the last dish I made with this. But that's okay. I am going to stretch this to make it work for this meal. So in goes my tomatoes and then my peas and carrots. And as you can see, my frying pan is quite full, and that will fill up my baking dish. So now for the mashed potato topping, I'm going to hand mash these. I know a lot of people use like a hand mixer. I don't have one. So I mash them without anything in them, no butter or anything like that, because it tends to mash up a little bit better, a little bit more finer than if I put the butter in first and the milk in. It's not as slippery. So I start mashing the potatoes first, and then I will add my butter, my milk, and I'm actually going to add some actual potato soup mix, that I made into this as well, just to stretch those potatoes. I guess I could have opened up another quart of potatoes and did it that way, but I thought, why not? The potato soup has all the spices and everything in it that will add to the dish. So I'm just adding some water from the vegetables, the peas and carrots, in, so I have enough liquid to hydrate the DIY mashed potato mix, the soup mix that I am going to put in there. And then I'm adding a few more spices just to zhuzh it up a little bit. And that is it. That's going to be my mashed potato topping. So I have my base in a Pyrex baking dish, and I'm just going to spoon on my topping, and I'm just going to dollop it on for now. I will come back and smooth it over. You can always do this with I find it easier. I mean, you could do it with a spatula like I'm doing here, but what I find easier is just to come back with a fork, a regular fork, and just smooth it down. And that is a lot easier. It helps to move the mashed potatoes around a little bit better than that silicone spatula that I was trying to use earlier. So this is what I'm going to use. And then I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit. I want some paprika, but because I don't have any, I used a little bit of red pepper on the top. And then this is ready to go into the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes or until the top is nice and golden brown. So here it is out of the oven. It is nice and golden brown. I'm going to let it cool for about 15-20 minutes, and then I'm going to serve it, and this will be our dinner tonight, shepherd's pie. So the traditional shepherd's pie is done with beef, but you can do this with any kind of meat you like, any kind of ground meat. I've done this with turkey. I'm sure pork would be good, venison, whatever you might have that is ground would work in this dish. You can also stretch it with, I did it with mushrooms because that's what I like to stretch my meats with, but you can do it if you want to do lentils or even oats, something like that, to help stretch that meat and ultimately to help stretch your grocery dollar. So yeah, if you want to try it, it is really good. Believe you me, it's really good. So I don't know if you can see that indentation in the meat portion down there. I turned my back for 2 seconds and all I heard was oops, little helpers trying to help, trying to, but anyway, it's all good. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos.